The sea is never calm. That was the very first thing that my father had told me about the ocean, and it was the very first instance of fear that I had felt for that great expanse. He told me that no man calls a perfectly still tiger calm. They call it patient, or they call it ready. Ready to strike. Fear the sea that lets you sit, or be ready for what she has in store. My crew was entertained. We were separated from the fleet and cruising on our own. Everyone walked around the ship and looked out towards the sea with wide and excited eyes. A perfectly still ocean, not a ripple gracing the blue surface. It was a true rarity. "Captain," my executive officer came up to my side. He was young and sharp, and I trusted his knowledge like I trusted my own hands. But I knew that he'd never be able to hear what I was hearing. He didn't know what I knew as we tore through the marble blanket. Both of us overlooked the imposing length of the battleship. My battleship. "I think the men want to cut engines," he continued. "Why not let them enjoy this for a while? We're in no rush, and when will we get a still sea again?" I took a deep breath. I inhaled the salty Pacific air and let his harsh rasp roll down into my lungs and boil there. I could taste it. I could taste the sea and her intentions. Poseidon and his pointed trident. With a long drawn-out sigh, I settled onto the railing, hands tightening around the bars. "All right." I was staring at the water. "We'll stay for a while." The engines were cut and the men began running around. They took videos and threw things out into the glassy surface. Everyone rejoiced in watching the monstrous ocean be so docile, be so timid. My hands rubbed the iron surface. My head was high, but my ears were to the water, to the heart of the sea. I listened to her deep rumblings, to her hushed feelings. She was asking me, "Are you sure?" That soft voice that I'd known all my life, that distant power, it whispered to me, "Do you want to stay and see my treasure?" Inside my hearth, the old coals began to light again, and the engine of my pride churned with all the power she'd ever held. A captain wants nothing more than to see what the sea has to offer him, to challenge the water like an adventurer of old. There were no wars on the planet for me to fight, no great battle for me to prove my mettle. All I had was this tense and loving competition with the ocean. I sat back into my chair, crossing my legs and lighting a cigar. "I'm ready," I said to myself with a slight nod, watching the embers burn in front of my old, wrinkled face. I was born ready. That still plane, that expanse of marbled infinity. It stared at our boat. It looked at us and sent her final warning. Maybe one of the other men saw it, maybe not, but I wouldn't have missed it for the world. One single ripple, no bigger than one you might find in a coffee cup. It danced across the sea in utter silence and kissed the edge of our iron boat. I carefully took the cigar out of my mouth. "Sticks?" The white smoke rolled out from my mouth. "Get the men to their battle stations." His eyes widened, and the calm surety of my voice left him stunned. A drill?" "No drill." I closed my eyes and smiled. "Not this time." Like a good second man, he didn't doubt me for one moment longer. In an instant, men were yelling and alarms were blaring. I could see it all without opening my eyes. The perfect patterns of crisscrossing men. The subtle beauty of coordinated action. The universal pride of a ship ran like a machine. By the time I'd opened my eyes again, the ship was a statue, everyone in place and waiting for what was next, frozen like a taut string. See, you're not the only one that can freeze chaos. Right on cue, the ocean rumbled. I rose with the lifting tension, and watched as the sea switched out her masks. In an instant, we were no longer floating atop a perfect marble, but shaking in a pot of broth. The sea had turned white and angry, and shook not with waves, but with wake. No tide nor wind was causing this ruckus. No. The sea herself was bringing up her monsters, delivering her promised challenge to my very footsteps. It surfaced, 10 miles out and dwarfing our battleship. It was a metal beast, wide and flat, but just as imposing as the thin profile of a stealth bomber. Along its knife-like edges, I saw what I could only assume were guns, and made out the heat simmering from its surface. It floated above the sea like the red fist of a right hook, waiting for us to make the first move. Our boat was in utter silence, awed by the sudden appearance of another ship, or moreover, an alien ship. Only I was ready. Only I was unbothered and excited, for I had long known that a true threat would never come from above, but like a shark, would come from below. "Sticks!" I yelled, as I stood up with excited glee. "Tell the rest of the fleet that they better get here quick. Otherwise, they're going to have to abide by our fishing policy." "Fishing policy?" "Oh, yes." I stared at that metal beast, at that gift from the sea, at life's greatest and most glorious challenge that had finally found me. I stared and let the engine in my chest scream with steam and vigor, chug with virility. The Navy doesn't recognize catch and release. We keep our prizes. And this trophy was mine.